And welcome to the Board Game Network. This is James. I'm going to be explaining how to play this game called Terraforming Mars. It is one of the hot games on Board Game Geek, and it was very hot at Gen Con this year, 2016. I could not even get a spot at the table to get a demo. It was full every time I went by their booth at Stronghold Games. This thing plays 1 to 5 players, 12 years and up, in an hour and a half to 2 hours. And I've already got it set up. We have our resource cubes. We've got gold, silver, and bronze, and this means 10, 5, and 1. And they're sized so that the 10s are a little bit bigger than the 5s, bigger than the 1s. You put these 3 white cubes out here to keep track of your starting temperature, your starting oxygen, and your starting generation. Your goal is to make Mars habitable so that you can live there, and that entails increasing the oxygen up to 14% oxygen, increasing the temperature up to 8 degrees Celsius on average. And this one just keeps track of your generations because this happens over multiple generations. You've got corporation cards here, and the ones with the red circle with a white triangle in them, those are corporate era cards. You'll see two corporation cards with that symbol. You'll also notice that your project cards, there's a bunch of those that have that same symbol on them. So especially for your beginning games, you're going to get rid of all of those cards out of the game. They make the game longer and more complex. And that's a variant, is to play with those cards. You have your other corporations here, and you're going to deal 2 corporations out to each player, and then they're going to pick one of them and discard the other one. And that will kind of help you focus where you're wanting to spend your energy on this game. If you are a beginner, there's beginner corporations that they suggest you take, and there's no extra benefit or extra leading by the beginner one. You simply get 42 mega credits and 10 cards in your hand, and that's how you start the game. And you get those 10 cards for free. You don't have to pay for them. Everybody else has to pay for their cards, so it gives you a little bit of an advantage if you're a beginner player. And there's 5 of those, so if you're new to Terraforming Mars, everybody can start with a beginner corporation. Here's the first player token. The first player is the last person that won Terraforming Mars. So if you've never played Terraforming Mars before, if your whole group hasn't, you're going to have to come up with a different way of choosing the first player. Here are your city tiles, and on the back are greenery tiles. Here are 4 reference cards that are references to the rules. They did a great job of providing references there so that you can look at those without going back to the rule book. So your project cards, those just get shuffled, and there are a bunch of cards, so that's going to be challenging just to shuffle those things. And whenever you discard project cards, you're going to discard face down so other people can't see what you're discarding. Any of the corporations that you don't use, those are just going to be out of the game. Everybody chooses a color, and that color is what you put on your player mat. Here's your player mat. You are going to start with one of your cubes in each of the 6 resources, and you're going to put it on the number 1 for all 6 resources. This is mega credits, this is money, this is metal, and that helps you build structures. This is titanium, and that helps you do space projects. Here are your leaves, which help you put out greenery. Here is energy, and here is heat. And heat helps you raise the temperature. So you need to keep separate. This is your your production. This is how much you get each generation of the other resources. So these are your resource cubes. So when you get mega credits, you're going to put these cubes on here to keep track of how many mega credits you have, and this keeps track of how much you get each generation. So let's just say I had a beginner corporation. I would get 42 mega credits, and I would get 10 cards dealt to me that I just get to keep. Now if you're not playing the beginner, you actually have to pay 3 mega credits for every card that you keep, every project card. So you got to look through your 10 cards and decide which ones you want to keep. If you keep a lot, that's going to cost you a lot of your starting capital. If you don't keep as many, then obviously you'll have more money but fewer cards. And every corporation, they have some kind of benefit. It's asymmetric, so different corporations can do different things. And that is your starting. You've got 9 ocean tiles. So your goal is to make Mars habitable, like I said. So you have to get the temperature up to 8 degrees Celsius. You have to get the oxygen to 14%, and you have to play all 9 oceans out. Now your oceans can only go on these blue tiles. They're kind of hard to see because they're not very dark blue here. And there's more than 9 of them, even though you only got 9 oceans. So you need to make sure you stack all your ocean tiles out here so that you can keep track of how many left you have to play. And anytime you increase one of the global parameters, the temperature, the oxygen, or the ocean, you actually increase your terraforming rating by 1. And your terraforming rating is essentially your income. For each round, you're going to add your income plus your production for mega credits. And that's going to be your income for the round. And you start at 20. Everybody starts at 20. So if you increase one of those 3 things, you're automatically going to move up 1. So even if a card tells you to put an ocean out, or anytime you move those up, you're going to correspondingly move up your terraforming rating by the same amount. And that happens until any of these are maxed out. If they're maxed out, then you're not going to get the terraforming rating increase for that. The game ends when all 3 of these have happened. The temperature's up, the oxygen's up, and all the oceans have been played. And then it ends at the end of that generation. So placing tiles, you'll notice that there's some icons on the board here. And these icons, when you play something on top of them, a greenery or a city, then you take the corresponding thing that happens. So here you'll notice some titanium icons. So titanium icons on here just mean you add titanium resources to your pool there. If that one's got 2, this one's got 1. This one has a card, so you draw a card if you play one there, and you don't have to pay for it like you do at the beginning of the generation. Here's leaf icons, so you are going to put, if you put down a tile there, you're going to put a corresponding leaf for every leaf icon that you covered up. Here's metal, the same way. That gives you metal resources. Some of these are restricted. The Noticed City, Noctis City, the Phobos Space Haven, and this colony here. All 3 of those you cannot place on top unless you have a card that lets you do that. Those are reserved spaces. And when you place a tile on the board, you're going to take one of your cubes and put it on top. If it's a greenery or a city, if it's an ocean, oceans are unowned, but cities are owned by the corporation that built them, And likewise, the greenery, you're going to put one of your cubes there, and that helps you at the end game scoring. So whenever you place an ocean out, remember you're going to get a +1 on your TR, but anybody that places next to the ocean gets 2 mega credits on their board for placing next to an ocean. When you place a greenery tile, you have to play it next to a tile that you already own on the board, if possible. If it's not possible, you can place it somewhere else. If it is possible, then you have to place it next to yours, and make sure you don't place it on the ocean, because those ocean spots are reserved for ocean. And there will be other things that show up in the ocean spots beside oceans, but the cards exclude you from that rule. So when you place greenery, you get +1 victory point at the end of the game for every greenery tile that you started. So you're going to look to see which cubes are on there and get a +1 victory point. Cities cannot be placed next to other cities. So no setting them adjacent to each other. Make sure you place your cube on there. It's got a little square on there to remind you to place a cube on there. At the end of the game, you're going to get +1 victory point for every greenery cube that's next to one of your cities. So if you have 2 greeneries next to your city, that's going to be +2 victory points. Now let's talk about the player board here for a minute. Here is your mega credits, and remember, anything on the brown, that's your production for each generation, and this is how many resources you actually have. So mega credits is essentially money you have to pay. It helps you buy project cards and stuff like that. Metal, the brown symbol with the hammer and the wrench, that helps you build structures. So you'll have cards that in the upper right hand corner, they'll have structures on them, and if they do, you can actually spend any of your resources that are metal. You can help pay for the cost of the card. So in this case, where I have 3, you'll notice that it says that's equal to 2 mega credits. So if I spent those, that'd be worth 6 of my 18 if I was going to put this one out. Titanium helps you build science or space ones. So here's a space one. It's got a space symbol there, and for each cube you have there, it's worth 3 mega credits off of the cost, and you do not get any change when you spend your resources. The leaf, you'll notice that you can spend 8 leaf resources to put out 1 greenery tile, and this is energy, and this is heat. Heat, you spend 8 heat to increase the temperature by 2 degrees Celsius or 1 space up. And these resource tracks are not limited. They go up to 10, but you'll notice that it has a kind of an arrow to the right of 10. So if you go up past 10, you're just going to put another cube on there. You're like, if you're at 15, you'll put 1 on 10 and 1 on 5 to know that you have 15 energy that you're producing every generation. Or if you go up to 25, you'll put 2 10s and a 5 to keep track of over 10. And you do notice the mega credits actually can go negative. That's the only track that can go negative, and it can't go below -5. Now let's take a look at these project cards. Project cards, here's the cost in the upper left, and that's just the cost of mega credits that it costs to put out. But there's requirements on them, and the requirements on there's requirements on some of them, and they're printed in the upper right next to the cost. If there's a requirement to play it, this is what kind of card it is. So oftentimes you'll notice that other cards refer to, if you have this many tags, these circles up here are called tags. And then something that the card does is down here on the bottom part. And there's different kinds. There's red cards and green cards and blue cards. The red cards are simply one-time cards You play them and then you flip them upside down because they have no further effect. The red ones are called event cards. And you'll notice that if you don't understand these icons, they they tell you what they do down in parentheses. So if you don't understand what this means up here on the requirement, read down here and it will explain the whole card to you. So instead of you having 5 pages at the back of your rule book describing every single card in the deck, they put it right on the card itself, so you're not having to look in the rule book for it. The second kind, the green kind, those are automated cards. And automated cards, you're just going to stack when you play them like this over to the side, because there's nothing down below that there's no further effect. But you do want to leave the top part open because these tags will maybe be referenced in your other cards. So you need to see how many of those you have. And then the blue cards are called your active cards. And when you stack those, you're going to leave the top part of it open so that you don't cover it, because there's further things that can happen each generation. It affects further play. And then your corporation cards, like this one says, you start with 1 energy production and 48 mega credits. So you would start with 1 energy and 48 mega credits here. And your effect is when playing a power card, so that's a card that looks like this, or the standard project power plant, which is over here, you pay 3 mega credits less for it. So if you have one of these like this, it only costs 3. You're going to pay 3 less for a card like that. That definitely is going to focus your efforts if you had the Thorgate Corporation. So each generation happens in this order. There's the turn order phase, and the first player marker is just passed clockwise, and then the generation marker goes up 1. Now you're not going to do this in the first turn. And then there's the research phase, and you don't do that in the first turn, and that's deal out 4 cards and then pay 3 mega credits for every card you want to keep. And you can keep 0 to 4. You can keep all of them, you can get rid of all of them. And you're not going to do that in the first turn either. And remember, those cards discard face down so people don't see what they are. And then at the action phase, and that's really the big phase that you go into, and there's several different options, and so I'm going to go back to that one. And then the production phase is your 4th phase. And your production phase, what you do is you take all of any energy you have over here. So let's say you've got some energy here. Any energy you have, you push to the right and make it heat. That's what that arrow means. You're going to get more mega credits, and your mega credits is based on where you are on the TR track plus this number here. And so that's how many new mega credits you will get at the end of the generation. And then you're going to get resources. The other 5 resources is based on where this cube is on the track. So if this is at 5, I would get 5 new metal, new titanium, new leaf, new energy, and new heat. And some of these cards, these blue cards here, they do something and they have a red arrow on them. So let me find one. Here's one. It's got a red arrow, that means it takes an action. So when you do that, and you're limited to one of those actions per generation, so when you do that, you're going to put one of your markers on there to show that you've used it for that generation and you can't use it again. And so in the production phase at the very end of the generation, you're going to take all of those cubes off of your blue cards. Now let's go back to your action phase. Your action phase, you can do 1 or 2 actions on your turn. You can do them in any order you want to. You can repeat the same action. And so your options are to play a card. And to play a card, you have to meet the requirements that are listed up here. Like this one says, requires 3 ocean tiles and that you lose 1 plant. Here's your 3 ocean tile requirement. So you have to have 3 ocean tiles out. It subtracts 1 leaf, so you have to remove a leaf from your player board. And that it says that you lose a plant and increase your plant production by 1 step. So you'd move the plant production up 1 and you would lose 1 plant or 1 leaf. So that's what that card does, and it costs you 4 mega credits to play it. And then you place the card down on your stack. So this would go on your green stack. Your second option for actions is the standard projects, and they're listed right here. And anybody can do them. You can do them multiple times. You'll notice it's got red arrows. You need to watch for those red arrows. Anytime there's a red arrow, that means it costs you an action. So this one says discard a card or X number of cards and get X number of mega credits. So if you discard 5 cards, you get 5 mega credits to put on your player board, and that's called sell patents. Here's power plant for 11 mega credits. Now you'll need to watch for this brown box around one of your resource icons. If there's a brown box, then it's increasing your production, not giving you cubes. So you pay 11 mega credits to increase your power plant production by 1. This one you pay 14 to increase the temperature by 1 space, and that's called an asteroid. Aquifer is you pay 18 mega credits to place an ocean tile down, and then you get the corresponding benefit. So if you place it onto one of the things that has an icon there, then that happens. You're going to go up 1 on your TR track because you're placing an ocean. 23 mega credits gives you a greenery tile to place with the requirements for greenery tile I explained earlier. And remember that greenery increases the oxygen level by 1. And because you're increasing the oxygen, you're going to increase your TR also, because that's one of the main 3 that you do. 25 mega credits to place a city out on the board, and 1 mega credit increase in your production. So that's your second option for actions. Your third option is to claim a milestone. Milestones are listed down here. Here's the cost for them. The first one cost 8, the second one cost 8, the third one cost 8, but there's no cost after that, because once you've claimed 3 milestones, once 3 have been claimed, then no more are available. And so if you claim one, you put your cube on there to show that that's one that you have claimed, because each milestone can only be claimed by 1 player, and that just means the first person to claim it. But you have the requirements. You have to be at 35 for the Terraformer on the mega credit track or the TR track. For the mayor, you have to have 3 cities in play that are marked with your cubes. The gardener has to have 3 greenery tiles with their cubes in play. The builder has to have 8 building tags in cards that they have played out. So you have to have 8 of those cards out here, and then you pay the 8 to claim that. And this means you got 16 cards in your hand. There is no card limit in your hand, but it's a lot of work to get to 16 cards, I can tell you that. And then for doing these milestones at the end of the game, you get a 5 victory point bonus. Then you can also fund an award, and again, this is limited to the first 3 players that do this. The first one costs 8, the second one costs 14, the third one costs 20. And unlike the milestones, you get the 5 victory points at the end of the game. With awards, you are just saying that you want these bonuses awarded at the end of the game. But you may or may not be the person that gets the award. You probably think you're going to, but maybe by the end of the game, maybe somebody else has got ahead of you in that area. So the awards, they give the person with the most of this category 5 victory points. The second most gets 2. In a 2-player game, this one is not awarded. So the landlord, and to mark these, you put a cube on it, but that doesn't mean you're going to get the points. That just shows that it's been funded. The landlord is who has the most tiles in play. And remember, oceans are not claimed, so you don't have a cube on those. So that's going to be your greenery and your city tiles. The banker, or any of the special gray cards, gray tiles that you put a cube on. And those gray tiles happen based on cards. The banker is going to be the person who has the most mega credit production, not the most money, because it's got the brown around it. Scientist is the player who has the most science cards that they've played out, and the science one is the atom symbol tag in your upper right corner. Thermalist is the person who has the most heat at the end of the game. And the miner is the person who has the most combination of steel and titanium at the end of the game. If there's a tie for these, then both players get this full value. So if there's a tie for first, most people are going to get 5, but then nobody's going to get second. Your next option for actions is to play using a blue card, and any of these that got the red arrow, remember, that's considered an action. And so you're going to mark that you have used it by putting one of your markers on there for the round. And this one says spend 8 mega credits to place an ocean tile. Steel may be used as if you were playing a building card. But once per generation you can play that and mark it. Some of your blue ones are just effects that don't have an arrow, so they just are a continuous effect, so it doesn't cost an action to use. This one says your global requirements are +2 or -2 steps. So that's a requirement. When you look at the requirements on the cards, instead of this one costing or requiring 3 ocean tiles, it would only require 1 ocean tile for any of your future cards, or for like this card. You can convert plants to granary. See the red arrow? That's an action. Take 3 plants off and put a greenery tile down. You can take 8 heat and raise the temperature 1 space. See the red arrow? So that's an action. The game ends when all 3 global parameters are maxed out, have gotten to their goal of 8 degrees Celsius, 14% oxygen, and all of the 9 ocean tiles have been placed on the board. You go ahead and complete your production phase. You go ahead and finish all of your actions until people have passed. And then you go ahead and go through the production phase of getting your production again. And then there's one last optional purchase of a greenery tile, because you may have gotten more plants from your production and you may have enough to produce a greenery tile, so you can produce 1 greenery tile at the end of the game. And then here's how the scoring works. You just start with wherever your TR marker is. Your marker is on the TR track, and you just start accumulating from there. And you're going to add your awards, so whoever has cubes out here on these awards is going to get 5 points for each cube that they have. you are going to look at, this is the milestones, the awards here. Whoever has the most in these categories will get 5. The second most will get 2. You are going to get 1 victory point for each greenery tile that you have out here that you've marked with your cubes. You are going to get 1 victory point for each greenery tile next to one of your cities. So if you have your red and you have a city and you have 2 greenery tiles next to your city, you're going to get 2. Helps if I move the right cube to not confuse people. Most of the time I'm confused though. So you're going to look at your cards in play. Cards in play that you have victory points down in the lower right hand corner. Here's a -2. So that's going to adjust your TR track also. And so you're just going to accumulate all that stuff. Whoever is in the lead on the TR track is going to be the winner. And as a tiebreaker, whoever has the most mega credits for breaking that tie. There are some variant rules to this, and one of them is the corporate era variant, and that is all those cards we took out at the beginning, the 2 corporations. Here's the 2 corporate era corporations, and then all of the, I don't know, 60 cards or so that we took out that have corporate era symbol down there, the red circle with the white diamond in it. So you're just going to mix those in and play with those also into the deck, and that makes the game longer, and it gives it some additional complexity. And then there's the solo variant, and that is using it with the corporate era cards. And the solo variant, you are going to start, instead of starting at 20, you're going to start at 14 right here where it says solo. And the generation, it only goes 14 generations before, and you have to have completed the 3 global parameter requirement by the time it's before the end of the 14th generation. And so the way you set up a solitaire game is you are going to flip a card and you're going to start counting in the upper left hand corner here and count over based on the cost. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and you're going to put a city there. And likewise, you're going to do another one, another city, and you're going to start counting from the bottom and put a city. And then you're going to flip another one, and you're going to put a greenery tile, and you're going to start in the upper left-hand corner and count clockwise around until you put a city down or a greenery down, and that does not affect the oxygen. You're going to do the same thing around this one. And these are neutral. They're not going to have a cube on them. And so that's the start for the solitaire game. And if it tells you to put a city in the ocean, then you're just going to skip until it's a valid play. Don't put any invalid plays down. You're not going to use milestones or awards in the solitaire, and you do have a neutral opponent. The point of that is, if there are any icons in here that have a red line around them, like this one here, the red line means it applies to any player. Usually most of the stuff applies to you. It's going to subtract from your resources and then do something. Well, the red line means it can subtract from any player, so you can do it to you, but you can do it to anybody else, and that's an optional. So in other words, if nobody has, in this case, a plant, you can still play the card. This one says requires 2 degrees Celsius or warmer. Decrease any plant production 1 step. So you would have to move the plant production down 1, but if everybody was at 0, you could still do this. 1 victory point for each animal on this card. So you're going to be putting animals as an action. You're going to put an animal on this card, animal on this card, animal on this card. But you're still going to get 1 VP for each animal on this card at the end of the game. So you're going to reduce somebody's plant production when you play the card, and you're going to get this at the end. So if everybody's at 0, you can still play the card. That's what that red line means. And so in the solitaire game, you're going to have a neutral player that you can pretend like you're interacting with on those, especially those red ones that subtract something from somebody. And then you have to complete the 3 global parameters by the time generation 14. And then you also have the draft variant, and the draft variant is when you draw your 4 cards instead of, or your 4 cards each generation, and deciding whether to buy, you're actually going to pick one of those 4, you're going to pass the other 3. And if it's an even generation, you're going to pass clockwise. If it's an odd generation, you're going to pass counterclockwise. And so you're going to draft. When you get 3, you're going to take 1 and pass the others. When you get 2, you're going to take 1 and pass the others, and you're going to take the 4th one. And then you're going to look at those 4 and decide which ones to buy for 3 mega credits each. So that gives you some additional flexibility in which cards you get each generation. So that is Terraforming Mars. Let us know in the comments down here if this game is as good as all the hype. You know, it's crazy high on Board Game Geek. It's one of the hot games, and it was super hot at Gen Con. Make sure you tune into all of our videos and keep up to date on the latest games, the latest rules, and make sure you subscribe here, please, on the Board Game Network so you can keep up to date on all the videos we produce.